Hey folks, welcome back to Tech and More Tech. I'm Carlo, and in this video, we're going to review the Flic 2 Starter Kit. As always, if you prefer a written version, head on over to techandmoretech.com or check the link in the description just below that like button. Full disclosure, Flic sent these to me free of charge, but with no strings attached, so I will still give my honest opinion of this product in this review. Those of you that have watched several of my videos will know that I'm a big fan of smart buttons. Even though I have a smart speaker in every room of my home and an Apple Watch on my wrist, I still prefer to control my smart home with physical interaction rather than using my voice. This isn't a set rule or anything, of course. If I'm in bed or on the couch, I'll happily yell at Alex or Siri to do something, but if I want to turn on a light when I enter a room, I like to just press a button. The other benefit to buttons is that there is little to no cognitive overhead when it comes to using this. What that means is when you build up your smart home with dozens of lights and devices, it's sometimes hard to keep track of what each one is called. And sometimes the voice assistants are just not reliable enough to always execute the verbal commands you give to them. Buttons are also great for everyone else in your household that needs to interact with all your stuff. Your spouse or your kids don't need to remember the names of all the different lights that you've set up. This is the same reason why I advocate for smart switches and dimmers over smart light bulbs when it comes to smart lighting solutions. Anyways, there are two versions of smart buttons out there on the market. You've got single button style products like the Flic, and then there are also the remote style ones that have multiple buttons on a single device. They each have their pros and cons, but what I really like about the Flic style buttons is that they are a little bit more versatile and you can stick them anywhere without it being quite as cluttered looking. So let's take a look at what you get when you buy the Flic starter kit. Off the bat, it's kind of strange to me that my press starter kit is a little bit different than the ones consumers can buy. Not sure why it is, just a curious observation. The hardware itself is the same, but my Flic kit came with the long-range hub, 4 Flic buttons, a micro USB cable, a wall plug, and every adapter for every country. Per Flic's website, the starter kit that you would get has the same long-range hub, 3 buttons instead of 4, and just the micro USB cable. Personally, I'm fine with not getting the wall plug, especially because it's just a 5-volt 1-amp plug, which basically everyone has at home at this point anyways. My starter kit also comes with a little sheet of stickers, which I believe does not come in the regular starter kit, but you can buy a larger sheet of stickers for $5 on their site. At that price, I kind of wish this was just included. I can't imagine it cost them a ton anyways, so it'd be a nice little thing to have. For those of you that may be thinking, do I need the hub? Can I use the buttons without it? The answer is yes, but there's a bit of a twist. Unlike other smart buttons that work with Zigbee or maybe even Z-Wave, Flic uses a proprietary version of Bluetooth Low Energy 5.0. So the little hub you're buying is actually a Bluetooth-based hub and not a Zigbee-based ones like most others are and what I assumed this one would be. This means that for those of us that have existing Zigbee hubs like SmartThings, Home Assistant, or even Echo devices, you may still want to get the Flic hub. Wait, you said you could use it without the hub. That's right, I did. You can set these to connect directly to your phone. So long as your phone is within range, it can execute whatever action is assigned to it. And we'll go over that a little bit more later on. If we take a look at the hub, there's really not much to it. It's a white plastic shell with a bunch of ports on one side. From left to right, you've got an IR connector, which can be connected to an infrared accessory that they sell that allows you to then control IR-based devices like your TV or cable box or receiver, etc. It has a 3.5mm audio output, so you can connect it to a speaker if you wish. Also more on that later on. Then you've got an Ethernet port, a micro USB port for power, and a little status LED light. I initially set this up thinking it was Ethernet only, and I was faced with a conundrum, because the back of my router only has 3 Ethernet ports, which were already taken up by my Hue hub, Lutron hub, and my Home Assistant Blue. Thankfully though, the Flic hub does have Wi-Fi. In fact, it even has 5 GHz 802.11ac connectivity if you wanted that for some reason. Regardless of how you want to connect the hub, as soon as you power it on, the little light will light up, and then you can set it all up in the Flic app. As per usual, create a Flic account and then proceed. From there, you're faced with a very simple looking interface, and it has a colorful little plus button in the bottom right that lets you add a hub. I want to give kudos to Flic on this part because it is so damn seamless to get this set up. If you're setting up with Wi-Fi, it will find the hub, ask the network you want to connect it to, type in the password, you're good to go. If you connect via Ethernet, you don't even have to do that, it just connects. One thing that would be a great addition to the next version of this hub, if they were to further iterate it, would be power over Ethernet. Considering how little power it draws anyways, it would be nice to have one cable that connects to it for power and data. Once your hub is paired, you can then go ahead and pair the buttons to the hub. On the bottom right, you tap the plus sign again and then hold down the Flic button for up to 10 seconds and it will pair. I found that it is super fast and super easy to get them all set up. The process is pretty much the same for those of you that want to pair a Flic button to your phone directly. At the top of the app, you can switch between the Hubs and Phone tab. Simply select the Phone tab and then add the Flic from there, easy peasy. As you can tell, the app hasn't really changed much. Once you add them, in the top there are 3 little dots that provide a contextual menu. Providers at the top is kind of like a list of integrations that Flic works directly with. You've got everything from Amazon Routines, Chromecast, Harmony Hubs, If This Then That, LifeX, Nanoleaf, Slack, Sonos, etc. In fact, if you go online to their integrations page, there's even more integrations that you can implement, including controlling the camera on your phone, finding your phone, playing sounds, controlling music, and more. Most importantly, to me at least, the buttons can be used natively with HomeKit and they can be used to trigger Amazon routines. So if you have both ecosystems kind of working together, you can control both of them. The other menu option is your settings, which is pretty sparse and kind of to be expected. Setting up the Flic button to actually do something is as simple as tapping on the button in the app and selecting which action it should take. All Flic buttons are triple purpose. What I mean by that is you can assign a command to a single click, a double click, and a click and a hold. One of the attracting features of this product was that it works natively with HomeKit. However, there's no HomeKit code anywhere, which admittedly confused me for a little bit. Turns out you assign individual buttons to be exposed to HomeKit because once they are, they can only be configured from within the Home app. When you tap on a button, there's a little toggle near the top that says Add to HomeKit, which then starts the HomeKit process. Before we get into all the fun different things you can do with the buttons, I want to take a second and talk about the button itself. As you can see, it's roughly the size of a quarter and about 1 centimeter tall. They're made out of a really nice soft touch plastic that feels really good. I know it's a weird thing to kind of be impressed with the material of a small little button like this, but you gotta give credit where it's due, they really nailed it. It uses a single coin cell battery that is user replaceable and should last up to 3 years according to Flic. There's even an option in the button settings that enables sort of sleep mode, which prolongs the life, but at the expense of response time. Okay, so let's finally talk about the actual functionality of Flic buttons. I'll start with the performance. For a Bluetooth device, this has really impressive responsiveness. Actually, it's just good responsiveness in general. Some Thread devices might be a tad quicker, but it's definitely quick enough. Certain actions can be slower to react than others. HomeKit, for example, controls everything locally, so it is likely to produce a quicker result than doing an Alex routine that may use the cloud. This is by no means a dig at Flic, but just a note that not all actions are going to necessarily be instant or equally as quick. Integrating with Alex routines is pretty straightforward as well. Similar to the HomeKit integration, in the Flic app, select a button that isn't linked to HomeKit, and on any of the empty clicks, you'll select Amazon Alex routine as the action. This will expose that particular click type, single, double, or hold, to Amazon. You then have to go into the Alex app and add the Flic skill, link your account, and after that, it will look to discover new devices. You'll see that each of the different clicks are actually their own device now. Basically, Amazon can't identify a single button as a single device with multiple triggers. Instead, each trigger is its own device. Not particularly consequential, if I'm honest, but that's what you are faced with. Then you can have the Flic button set off any sequence of Alex routines that you want. You can either stack them further in the Flic app, so a single button press can trigger an Alex routine and trigger another action from another integration within the Flic app. It really just is a very versatile button. Most others integrate into like a single ecosystem, and then you're limited to what that ecosystem can do, whereas the people over at Flic really wanted their own app to be very all-encompassing, and I gotta give credit where it's due. In fact, on their site, there's even an ideas community forum where people can post their ideas for further integrations and use cases. Ones that have lots of upvotes will be considered to actually be added by the developers. I'll wrap up this review with a bunch of different ideas that can be implemented with the Flic button. You can obviously activate scenes like a movie or TV scene that turns off all your lights and turns on the TV to a certain input. You can have it make an announcement through your home using the Amazon voice routine. You can have it send a message or email using the Amazon routines as well. You can use it as a doorbell by connecting the hub to a speaker using a 3.5mm output, or even as a doorbell using the Amazon voice routine. You can have it automatically message a coworker or channel on Slack. You can have it play your favorite playlist on Spotify, or even a random one on Spotify. You can use it as a shutter for your camera. You can have it make fart sounds. You can connect it to if this then that, and then do anything that an IFTTT applet can do. These are just some of the fun things you can do with the button. As I said, it's very versatile, and I'm sure creative people will come up with even more use cases by integrating even further in their smart homes. So all of this brings us to the golden question. Should you buy the Flic button? As always, we start with the price. The standard starter kit that comes with the hub and 3 buttons is $160. If you want even more buttons, you can get the Pro kit that comes with the hub and 6 buttons for $220, or go for the Mega kit that comes with 15 buttons and with the extra IR accessory for $400. If you just want individual buttons, they are $30 each, or $80 for 3, or $120 for 6. Let's be honest, $160 for the starter kit isn't cheap, but I still think it's really good value. It may not be the first thing that a smart home buyer buys, and honestly, I wouldn't even recommend it to someone that doesn't have a pretty established smart home. But for those of us that have literally dozens of smart lights, switches, light strips, all sorts of accessories, being able to then figure out a good way to control them all is kind of paramount and not something you necessarily think of when you're first creating your smart home. I think the value that the Flic buttons add to your smart home is well worth the price. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for plenty more videos to come. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll get to them as best I can. And until next time, see ya.